Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we are going to take a look at Terra Mystica from Z-Man Games. Yes, this is the long-awaited review of Terra Mystica. Well, what happened was, this was sitting in my board gaming purgatory, which is all the shelves you don't see on camera that are full of games. You would cry if you saw how many unplayed, unreviewed games I have that I'm looking at right now. And Terra Mystica was stuck over there. But over on Patreon, I'm not trying to plug Patreon right this second, but just to let you know, some of the patrons over on Patreon had a chance to vote for a game from Board Gaming Purgatory to be played and reviewed right away, and Terra Mystica was the winner. It was actually tied with The Ancient World, and I decided to go for Terra Mystica finally. And listen, Terra Mystica is very well known and well regarded in the at least the modern board gaming community. It was number 2 on Board Game Geek. Excuse me, if I could even speak. It was number 2 on Board Game Geek's top 100 games list. And I mean all games, not just strategy games. And the only reason it was bumped down to number 3, I think it is right now, is because of Pandemic Legacy's meteoric rise to the top of the list, which bumped everything down a spot. But it's still incredibly well regarded. I think that if you don't count, and I wouldn't, Twilight Struggle as a Euro game, it is the number 1 ranked Euro game on Board Game Geek. And what the game is, you are taking control of a different fantasy faction, like Chaos Magicians, or Mermaids, or Witches, or there's Nomads and Fakirs. Fakirs, I said, not, whatever. And they each have a different special power. But the goal of the game, and why it's called Terra Mystica, is because you are actually terraforming the land. You need to make the land more hospitable to your particular tribe in order to build more buildings there. And that's what that's your main goal overall in the game, is to just spread out, build as many buildings and better buildings as you possibly can. And also there's this whole other thing with the cult track. This is a very in-depth game. There's a lot of details here. I tried my best to do it in an overview as briefly as possible. So let's go ahead and get to that if you're not familiar with the game. Then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Terra Mystica is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players. The goal is to have the most victory points by the end of 6 rounds of play. You're going to get points in many different ways, which we'll touch on as we go through the overview. Generally speaking, the plan is to take the fantasy race you've been given and spread their territory as far as you can, building and upgrading buildings as you go. But in order to do that, you need to terraform the lands to your race's liking. For setup, first randomly place 6 scoring tiles. These keep track of the rounds and also give points based on different building achievements at the end of each round, and income bonuses based on how far you are on certain cult tracks. We'll get to all of that. Each player is going to get a different fantasy faction. You can do this randomly or in turn order. Each faction board is double-sided with a race associated with one color and terrain type on each side. Every race has different traits and bonuses. Almost all of them have an ability that they have for the entire game, or that happens immediately at the start, and every race gains another ability when they've built their one and only stronghold. We'll get back to those later. Every player gets a set of wooden pieces representing their different buildings and trackers for different gauges on their board. There are dwellings, the smallest buildings, which can then be upgraded into trading houses. A trading house can be upgraded into a stronghold, which you only have one of. Or it can be upgraded into a temple, and one temple can be upgraded into a sanctuary. Every dwelling and further upgrades all have a cost, paid in gold and workers, which are little beige cubes. Each race will start with a different amount of these resources, as well as different placement on the cult tracks, which is a whole other thing we're going to get to in a little bit. Every time you remove a building from your board to put on the map, you access new income. For instance, every dwelling on the board gives you an additional worker each round. Trading houses get you money and power, which we'll get to soon. And temples and sanctuaries get you priests, another resource that is used for the cult tracks and for upgrading certain aspects on your player board. These resources convert down. Priests can be workers, and workers can be coins. Your faction board also has upgradable tracks, shipping, which tells you how far downriver you can build across, and terraforming, which improves how many workers can convert to spades for the purpose of terraforming your land. Speaking of that, each race has a preferred terrain, as depicted next to their picture, along with a wheel that reminds you of how difficult it will be to make different terrain into your type. In this example, it will only take the swarmlings 1 spade to make forests into lakes, but 3 spades to make deserts into lakes. Every player puts a score marker on the 20 mark, and every player has 3 power bowls. They each get 12 purple power discs to distribute amongst the first 2 bowls, depending on race. From then on, whenever you gain power, you move discs from the lowest bowl that has them to the next highest. Therefore, you can't start moving discs from Bowl 2 into Bowl 3 until all of the discs in Bowl 1 have been moved up to Bowl 2. Discs in Bowl 3 can then be spent and moved back to Bowl 1 to activate power actions that are lined up at the bottom of the board. Each one can only be used once per round by the player who gets to it first. There are also special conversions you can use your power on as well. Finally, every player chooses a bonus card. These cards give you extra income as well as potential special actions, which are always in this game depicted by an orange hex, as well as chances at extra victory points. These cards are chosen randomly, and there's always 3 more than the number of players. Any unchosen cards get a coin on them, which makes them more appealing to take in future rounds. The easiest way to explain Terra Mystica is by describing the 8 actions. Every round, after players gain income in the form of money, workers, power, and priests, you go into the action phase, where each player takes 1 action in turn order, going around and around until each player has passed. The first action is transforming and building. You terraform a piece of land to your specification by using spades, or workers who you have converted into spades, and then you may build a dwelling on top of that new space by paying its cost. This terraforming must be adjacent to a hex where you already have a structure, either directly or indirectly via your shipping rate. Spades that you gain do not carry over to later, but if you don't have enough spades to transform to your type of terrain, you can stop at another type and try again later to finish it off. The second action is advancing on the shipping track. You pay the cost to advance on the track, gaining points and increasing your ability to build downstream. The third action is lowering the exchange rate for turning workers into spades. You pay the cost to get victory points, and then from that point forward, you can get spades for spending fewer workers. The fourth action is upgrading a structure. Pay the cost and immediately replace one of your structures with the upgraded version, returning the replaced structure to your board, and therefore modifying your income. When you build a structure, neighbors may gain power depending on the number and power level of the structures you build next to, but if they take too much power, it may actually cost them victory points. If you build 4 connected structures and they're worth at least 7 power, or 3 structures if one of them is a sanctuary, you can immediately build a city on one of those hexes for free. City tiles give you points, a special bonus, and a key, which will let one of your markers reach the top of one of the cult tracks, which again we'll get to in a moment. Sanctuaries and temples also let you take a favor token, which are special bonuses and actions which also advance you on the applicable cult track. The fifth action is sending a priest to one of the cult tracks, and here's where we'll finally talk about that. Every player has markers on all 4 cult tracks, and you start at different positions depending on your faction. Many things will let you move up the track, and as you do, you'll gain power bonuses, and at the end of the game, points will be awarded based on first, second, and third place on each track. Only players with keys can advance to space 10, and only 1 player can be at the top of every track. By sending a priest to the track, you are permanently removing him from your stock to go up 2 or 3 spaces on the applicable track. First come, first serve. Or you can immediately take a priest back from an open space to only go up 1 space, and you don't have to permanently get rid of that priest. Action 6 is taking a power action. There are 6 of these on the board, and each can only be used once per round. Again, first come, first serve. You move your discs from Bowl 3 to Bowl 1 to activate them. You can even permanently sacrifice purple discs if you need to use an action and don't have enough, following certain restrictions. You may also convert power into the other basic resources, including priests. Action 7 is taking a special action granted by your race, your favor tokens, or your bonus cards. Only you can use these abilities and only once per round. Finally, Action 8 is passing. You drop out of the round, return your bonus card, and take a new one, just like during the setup of them. However, the other players may continue taking turns as they please until everyone eventually passes and gets a new card, with once again coins being placed on the untaken ones. At the end of the round, everyone cleans up and gets their cult bonuses from the scoring tiles as well as their victory points from the scoring tiles, and if they were high enough on the right track to get their cult bonuses, that is. After 6 rounds of this, the end game scoring occurs. First, second, and third place on each of the cult tracks gets points. First, second, and third place in biggest area of connected buildings, either directly or indirectly, also gets points. And everyone converts their resources down to gold. 1 point per 3 gold. You add all of this together to your accumulated points that you've gotten from the rest of the game, and whoever has the most is the winner. Now, let's get to my... Alright, for those of you who have been eagerly awaiting the Terra Mystica review, should I keep you in suspense or tell you right now? I'll tell you right now. I like this game. I like it a lot, actually. I'm not sure that I love it. I may never love it. But the thing to keep in mind throughout the rest of this review, the final thoughts here, is that I was never supposed to love this game because this is not my speed at all. When I say my speed, I mean a very heavy, and it is, this might be the heaviest Euro I've played, but I haven't played D-Mocker, which is also in Purgatory, and I haven't played like Roads and Boats, which I don't have in Purgatory yet. But for me, this is like the heaviest one I've played. I think the only thing even comparable was maybe Kanban, which I did not like. But Terra Mystica... just by all accounts, I shouldn't have enjoyed it at all, even as much as I did. And I think where it falls squarely for me is the same place that Stefan Feld games end up. Which is to say, pasted on theme. I know people will make an argument that Terra Mystica is thematic. I did not feel that. I'm sorry. But, like Stefan Feld games, that's not enough of an issue to make me hate it at all. In fact, again, I like a lot of Stefan Feld games, not all of them, most of them that I've played. And I like Terra Mystica, because I think that the game mechanics, however you want to say it, are solid enough, really, really good enough, to sort of take it to that next level, to the point where I was engaged the entire time I was playing it. Now, I've only played Terra Mystica twice, so if that forces you to disregard anything else I'm about to say, I totally get it. But one of the issues with the game I have is actually how long it is. And I felt like it was so long and dragged out both times that I played it that I saw different races each time, that I really got a good grasp for how the game works. I had a lot of time to think about it, let me put it that way. Much more than on the average game I would spend, where I think it felt like I got more experience with this game in 2 plays than for other games I've played 3 or 4 times. It just kind of felt that way. And... where do I even start? There's so much in this game. There really is. Let's talk about the components. The components are actually really good. A friend of mine who I played with the first time I played this, I knew was into Euro games and had made some joking comment about there being a lot of wood in games. And I'm sure there was some double entendre the first time he told me that. But I was like, this is going to be your wet dream come true, because this is just full of wood, and they're all really nice looking. The board looks okay. I mean, all the monsters, but the races, the fantasy races and factions, everything looks very clear. I love the fact that everything has iconography, which, by the way, in some games I hate, but is utterly necessary in this game. If there was not iconography next to every single bit of the faction boards and the cult track and all of that, reminding you what they did, you would be utterly lost. As it is, it takes like 30 to 40 minutes to explain the game the very first time if you're learning for the first time, which is how it usually goes in my group. But then once you get it, it's actually relatively simple because everything is so intuitive. So I think the overall graphic design of the game worked well. The rulebook is fine. I don't think that it could have been better because there's so much information they just have to dump onto you. Although I will say that my book had to be printed from offline because the copy of the book I had like random pages that were still in German. I don't know how many other people that happened to, but that was kind of frustrating. I had to print it out. But that's a minor quibble. Going on to the theme, I already mentioned, it's pretty pasted on. Yes, every different faction has a different power, and it kind of makes sense. Like, the merfolks want lake, the swarmlings want lakes, the nomads want deserts, but ultimately it feels like my faction can put this thing down here, and my faction can build these easier, and there's no combat per se. There's definitely interaction. I don't want to say that. But because of that, and because there's no, like, grand me casting spells around or taking the armies to war, it never felt like the theme was all that strong. But again, not a deal breaker for me in this particular case. So oh boy, I'm already exhausted talking about this game. Let's talk about the gameplay mechanisms. Actually, let me talk about what I don't like about the game before I go into what I do like, because it's not an exhaustive list. I've already mentioned it's very long. Too long, I think. I don't know what you could have cut out, but, well, that kind of goes into my next point. There's a lot of plates spinning in the air on this game, and I'm not sure that all of them needed to be. So, for instance, the big 800-pound gorilla in the room is the cult track. Now, I don't mind the cult track. I think it's interesting. But that feels like something that a whole expansion could have been dedicated to. It really does. I know that it is tightly interwound with a lot of the other things that happen in the game, like grabbing the favorite tiles, and those can boost you up, and the scoring tokens have a cult bonus at the end of the round. But it still feels like that could have been excised from the game, and you'd still have a very good, competent game. It just feels like almost too much. I can't really say that about a lot of the other aspects. I mean, like the power. I actually like the way the power bowls work. It's a lot to take in on top of everything else, but I think the game is better for it being in there. But the cult track, while interesting, I think could be excised. The whole bonus cards, the cards that you get every round that you choose when you pass, interesting, but again, maybe there could have been a more intuitive way to do that. It's just a whole other set of things that you have to learn and master. Again, that could have been an optional variant or something like that. Hey, that was the name of my show. Other things I don't necessarily like, I think that there is a point in time in the game where you know that one person is probably going to win and that you're going to lose. And the rest of you might be jockeying for position of the remaining spots. But even then, you might know for sure. Because there's no luck in this game. Like a true Euro game. There's maybe the luck of what your opponent may decide to randomly do. But for the most part, and also the luck of which bonus tiles you get at the start of the game. What scoring tiles you get out there. Because there's more than what you need. But for that, despite small things like that, you can math this game out. You can decide, okay, here's my strategy. I'm just going to do it. The only way that can be ruined is if players like Ruined is cut you off through terraforming, which happens. That's the main interaction in the game. Or jockeying for different limited resources on the amongst the board, like the city tiles, is interaction as well. That can happen, but if that doesn't happen, you just stick to your plan. And if your plan is better than the other players' plans, you're going to win. There are certain things you can't ignore in the game. And if you do, you're going to lose. So it's a real, I don't know if I'm using this phrase right, but it's like a real zero-sum game. If you don't do the right things, you're going to fail and lose. And that can be very demoralizing when you get to like round 3 and you're like, oh, I can't beat you because you have a plan that you've already put you ahead of all of us. We can't catch up. So I did feel that way. But it did make me want to do better in future games, which is the saving grace of the game, I think. I love the fact that despite the fact that they're not thematic, all the factions feel very different. And I love the variety of them. There's so many. I think that a lesser game publisher would have said, they don't need that many factions. Put like 6 of them in there, and then we'll put the rest out in expansions. But they put a ton in this box, and there already is an expansion out with more, which I'll probably play. I actually have it already. It's also in Purgatory. So I love the variety of factions, and it makes me want to try those out as well and feel the different play styles. And I've heard people say they can be solved, but I haven't solved them yet. So I would love to try every single faction eventually. And because they all just feel different and distinct. Like this player is really good at terraforming and spreading out as quickly as possible, like the nomads, but other players are just like, screw all that. I just want temples. Get me like the Chaos Magicians. Temple. Get me as many favor tokens as I possibly can. I'm going to skyrocket up that cult track, and I'm going to get my points that way. I find that very interesting that everyone has this different strategy that they try to implement. I already mentioned that I like the pull power system. And also, I'm not going to say it's like Moncala, but it gives me the same feeling as Trajan's Moncala system, where it's like a tactile thing you could do within the game that I found interesting. And trying to math that out, again, might have almost been too much, but I found it very captivating and another thing to try to worry about. The whole system of how buildings upgrade, and I've seen this in other Euro games, of course, but how when you put buildings out, you get income increases, but then when you upgrade them, they come back and cover up your income increases. So it's like, okay, I'm building a trading house, which is great, but I'm giving up a worker which sucks. So I want to put out more dwellings, but I also need to upgrade as well because I want those cities, which is a whole other thing that I think is very interesting. Oh man, I could go on and on. I like the whole aspect of the whole stronghold and how you have to rush to get that stronghold to get your special ability, which is again another powerful thing that makes you distinct from the other players. And just what do you rush to do and how much do you focus on certain areas of the game as opposed to other areas. There's just a lot going on in the game, and while I do think that there are some faults that might, or maybe not over time, keep me from loving it completely, there's enough here that kept me really engaged, and I really enjoyed it. I am eager to try the expansion. I think my next play is going to be with the expansion. I think there's a couple things besides new factions that are in it that I like, new mechanisms. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't looked into it too much. But I want to try the new ones and play it more and more and more and see what some of the existing factions, see how they interact together. But overall, pleasantly surprised with Terra Mystica. Some of the things I feared about it did turn out to be true, but they weren't enough for me to hate the game by any means. I liked it a lot, and we'll see how much it grows on me over time. So that is Terra Mystica. I'm sure I don't need to tell most of you this, but I do recommend it. Most of you have probably already played it and loved it.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.